Welcome, friends. It is Sunday morning, so we're going to do another one of our post-Depression, pre-World War II recipes from the Elmvale Community Cookbook. And this week we're going to do a recipe called Boston Brown Cookies, submitted by Mrs. George Dwinell. Now, this is another one of the recipes out of this book that gives very few directions and very few clarifications of what the ingredients are. So it starts out with some shortening. So in goes the shortening, and I'm going to cream that together first. Now, I've had a few questions in the comments section about what shortening actually is. Apparently, it's not common in other parts of the world or in every part of the world. And in the context of this book, in this time period, even though I know vegetable shortening was available, it had been invented in the 1890s, and this book is 1938 or 1939, I'm pretty sure that what they're referring to as shortening is actually pure pork lard and not vegetable shortening, but it could have been vegetable shortening. And those two ingredients are sort of used interchangeably in a lot of recipes in this time period. They didn't request one or other specifically, they just said shortening, and whichever one you had, you put in the recipe. Next in are 2 eggs. Okay, the dry ingredients are next. And so in this bowl I have some all-purpose flour, and to that I'm going to add salt, baking soda, cinnamon, and this is a combination of allspice and cloves that I've ground together. I use these spices as whole spices and grind them as I need them, so it's just easier to put them both in the grinder at the same time. Now we'll mix that together. Okay, slowly dry into the wet, 2 or 3 additions I think. Okay, now there's fruit that goes into these. We've got, it says small seedless raisins, chopped dates, always with the chopped dates, and some walnuts. And I think I'm only going to put in that many walnuts. A whole cup of walnuts seems like a lot to me. Now, it says to drop onto a buttered baking tray. Now, the only directions I get for baking are to put them into a hot oven. So I've got the oven at 375. Let's see what happens.
So Glenn, you've been busy.
Yes, these are the Boston Brown cookies. They took 12 minutes to bake, and in that 12 minutes, I did some web research about Boston Brown cookies.
Did it include why they're called Boston?
So they're in the first Fannie Farmer cookbook, and then they're in a bunch of New England cookbooks all the way through the 1950s, and then they sort of in the 1950s start to fall out of favor.
Okay.
But I'm sure people
Everything
still make
cycles
them.
through.
I'm sure people still make them.
And probably under a different name.
Could be.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of surprised. This is what, Elmvale, mid-Ontario, but this recipe is very close to all of the ones that are published in New England.
Okay.
With, of course, the Ontario twist of
Dates?
dates.
Well, and then if you recognize the recipe and you know it is a different recipe name, share.
Let us know.
So these are crunchy cookies. I was surprised because they have the dome shape. Usually that suggests chewy cookies.
They're crunchy and a little bit crumbly. I kind of like the texture. It's a different texture than most cookies you would expect. It doesn't have the texture of a chocolate chip or a peanut butter.
Yeah, they're not cakey at all.
No.
But they're not overcooked.
No.
That's the weird thing. They just have this different crunchy kind of texture to them.
The spicing is quite nice. I like the combination of spices. I'm not a big fan of the walnuts.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
But you could put other things in. Like you could put
pecans in it. I think
You
pecans.
could put pecans. Yeah, it's because you like pecans. But
I
some
like
people
pecans.
some people like walnuts.
Um,
But you could also put those cran raisin things or
yeah.
whatever you new one.
Well, and one of the recipes that I found actually used butternuts,
Ooh,
which are almost impossible to find now.
we have some somewhere.
Yeah, I've got some.
We have, oddly enough,
I've got some.
Glenn did a lot of internet searching.
I've got some butternuts, and I would make it with butternuts, but
With butter-
I could never do a recipe online. I could never do a recipe video and say use butternuts because you know what?
They're really hard to find.
There's like one place in Ontario that grows them.
And they're hard to work with.
Well, they're almost impossible.
Because you have to, yeah, they're...
They don't. So it's a white walnut. It's part of the walnut family, but it doesn't open up like a walnut. It's impossible to open, impossible to get the fruit out, which is probably why nobody eats them anymore. You know, when it comes right down to it. So I really like these. If your family still makes these, if you're from New England and you make these, let us know. Let us know what you do a little bit differently. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.
Enjoy your day.
Okay, so shot of butternuts.